What is up, everybody? Welcome to the Apple Byte Extra Crunchy here from our headquarters in San Francisco, California. This is episode 71. Brian Tong in the house. Just a little bit of house cleaning. Stephen Beacham is going to be away for the next couple of weeks, so I have my main man, Mitch Chang, running the boards. He's running the show, but we wanted to also let you know that because of that, our voicemails, we aren't going to be able to get to them because Stephen also controls that as well. So we're going to hold on to your voicemails. Everything we talked about, the Apple eyeglasses, just sit tight with us, and we will talk about that stuff later. But if you are watching live with us on YouTube, if you're watching live with us on Periscope or Twitter, you can tweet me at Brian Tong, and I'm going to be able to look at some of your comments while we talk. But let's just jump into the show off the bat. We have a very special guest with me, senior reporter Shara Tipkin. She's already smiling because she's like, very special. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Shara is really our beat reporter for not only CNET, but really Apple. You deal with them intimately. For people that maybe not be familiar with some of your work with CNET, can you kind of tell us, some of your interactions or some of the things that they can see you on at CNET and how you deal with Apple,
Yeah. So I'm on the news team. So at CNET, we have the reviews side who looks at the products. So typically for Apple, that's Scott Stein. On the news side, I cover Apple and Samsung. So pretty much anything big happening with either company, I'm going to be writing about it. I go to all their events.
You do.
I do. Talk to them, just generally know what's going on with both of them.
So basically, if you see an article on CNET, most likely it's written by Shara when it comes to the Apple goodness and just all the big boys, really.
The big boys. The big news, though. I'm usually not writing up rumors, so
yeah, like the one things that I'm talking about. She's like,
yes, exactly.
I'll leave that stuff for you guys down there.
No.
So what we wanted to talk about really is a question that has been on my mind and on the mind of a lot of our listeners and viewers of the video podcast. Is we're going to talk about what could Apple's next big thing really be. We've heard a lot of stuff and we'll talk about it, but I think one of the things that everyone is wondering is, will Apple have another hit? And if so, what could it be? You've covered them for over 3 years. What is your feeling inside of Apple? Like, do they really have something that they're working on? They've dropped hints about augmented reality. Who knows what the future of their autonomous car thing is, but where do you stand with, does Apple have the capability to drop something like that on us still, or are they a different company today?
I think they still really do. I mean, if you look at them, they're never really first to a market, but then they just come in and completely change it. So augmented and virtual reality are something we've seen a lot of, but they just haven't really caught on very much yet. People are still kind of trying to figure out what you actually do with it. That could be a really big area for Apple. I think ultimately whatever they do is going to be something that is kind of tangentially related to the phone or directly related, because 2/3 of their revenue comes from the iPhone. They've always said they're willing to create a new product that will eat away at their other products as long as they're the ones doing it. So it's not like what we saw with the iPod. Like they basically, their iPhone killed the iPod. Like that thing is dead. But
my original one still works.
Oh yeah, no, I mean they still work. They still work.
The product category is, I mean, they've never actually officially said it's dead though, right?
No.
Right?
I think they still sell them.
Yeah, they're in the other category of their earnings reports, right?
So is the Apple Watch.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and Apple TV too.
Yeah, Apple TV. Yeah, but they're not going to do anything. I mean, realistically, they're not going to do anything that's going to really hurt the iPhone. But I think a lot of companies' kind of vision for the future and what the world is going to be like is your phone or your watch or whatever is kind of the remote control for your life. So they say, where you're controlling your smartphone through your phone, or smart home through your phone, not your smart. Yeah, you're doing that too.
Yeah, you're doing that too.
But just everything kind of connected to it. But, I also think voice is going to play a big role. Artificial intelligence, Siri is going to be so much more important. I think it can be incredibly frustrating right now when you ask, what's the weather? They bring up like a Wikipedia page or like weather.com. It doesn't actually give you an answer. So still trying to figure out, I think, how they do that. But it could be, their next big thing could actually be more of a service than an actual product.
Yeah, I think that, everyone is really, in general, in the tech world, not only are they curious, some people still haven't jumped on board, but the whole artificial intelligence, voice control, Amazon Echo, which is has been my favorite gadget for I would say arguably right the past year and a half or so. It's really kind of that product that has created this new platform, this new thing. And everyone, when I first saw the Echo, I'm like, damn, like back in the day, I felt like Apple was the one that sometimes would kind of create at least this platform. But like you said, they typically come second, even third to market, and they polish it up really nice. I think that home voice control is their largest opportunity from, at least, like you said, the standpoint of it. It revolves around the iPhone per se. The iPhone is on you. We've heard rumors, and they haven't really done much with the Apple TV. And there were first stories about, it's, the developer kits had HomeKit integration, but they've never taken it to the next step. Like, where do you think that Apple TV thing could be for them? Because sure, everyone says just slap a microphone on it, you'll sell more of them. But now everyone already has an Echo. Yeah. Have they lost at least that whole idea of a speaker set-top box with a mic battle?
That's kind of the debate right now, actually, is a lot of these different markets where they came in, the markets weren't really there anyway. Like, they weren't the first smartphone, but there really wasn't a smartphone market. They basically created it. Same with smartwatches. Samsung, Pebble, Sony, some of these guys were in the market, but nobody was really buying watches yet. It's arguably, don't know if people are now either, but
that's true. That is true.
Yeah. But when it comes to like the Home and the Echo has taken over everything. Like, everybody integrates with them. Everybody works with them. So they have all these different skills you could do. Everything that's just, really popular. And Apple does actually seem pretty late there when it comes to the Home. And I think, I don't know, like Apple's earnings last week, Tim Cook, he's at the beginning, he spent some time talking about how he uses Siri in his life. And part of it was like talking about the Home, how he uses it to control his lights. And, I thought that was interesting. Nothing he said was new. Nothing was like crazy, but it was kind of him trying to be like, hey, we do this to you guys. Like, we have it. Remember us.
And that's funny because to me, that's a role reversal from what Apple has been in the past. Like, you'd see a lot of other companies say, hey, we have this too, just to remind you. And it's one of the few times when people are talking about where is Apple in the scheme of just like the tech hierarchy. Of course, we know they had their largest quarter ever. They're still making tons of money. Now it's more of the perception of how much innovation or how much of that Apple magic do they still have left. And it's funny that when you talk about him saying, oh, hey guys, over here, we have Siri, because people aren't talking about Siri for home use at all. And they've had that HomeKit integration for a while, but because of how more controlling they are with their ecosystem, how you have to get certification, agree to using X, Y, and Z, that made it difficult. Amazon's like, here it is. You can get a skill approved in like less than a week or so, or somewhere around like 10 days even.
Yeah, I mean, and like, it's really interesting some of the stuff Amazon's doing with Echo too, to make it more like a person. Like with Siri, it's still in a lot of ways is you're talking to a robot. Like, it's not, you don't forget that. It's you have to phrase questions in a certain way or you're not going to get an answer. You're going to get something completely wrong. Whereas like Amazon has launched this big contest to get universities and researchers to come up with ways that Siri can actually have Alexa can actually, Amazon. So that Alexa can actually have a conversation with you. So it will remember the question you previously asked and be able to just kind of talk to you like we're talking, picking up from the last thing you said. Yeah.
Do you have, I'm going to jump a little bit over to the autonomous car. We heard Apple was working on that project, then basically pretty much gutted the team. That might be some sort of a system that they can license out in the future. What's your gut, from even what you may or may not know, is Apple not even really, I know it was a rumor in the beginning, but has Apple kind of stayed away from any chatter? Because a lot of times, like with augmented reality, Tim Cook is like kind of already saying, hey, we're all about augmented reality, but they don't say anything about the car. Yeah. Is that something that they kind of you feel like they just want it to go away, or where do you think they stand on that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have any inside knowledge specifically about the car, but I was skeptical. I honestly was skeptical about that from the beginning. I just couldn't see how Apple would want to build a car. Like a car is becoming a portable computer, as people say. They're becoming a lot smarter. We have our giant roadshow operation because of that. But I don't know. I was just always really skeptical of that. But they do have CarPlay, and they do want to be the dashboard in your car. They want your phone to work with the car. They want, when you get into your car, it knows your preferences. It, knows maps and where you normally go. So if you want to say navigate home, it will come up, or your playlist is on there from Apple Music or whatever. Like, they definitely want to own that dashboard. And I have no doubt that they were probably experimenting with a car. Like, if you look at NVIDIA, the chip maker, they built a self-driving car. So, I rode in this at CES. There's literally no one else in the car with you. You're in the back seat and you like watch the steering wheel turn itself. They're not going to sell a car, but they sell the chips that power the car, that work with self-driving, that work in the dashboard. So they wanted to understand how it's going to work. And they wanted to be able to show customers and make it really easy for people like Audi to come out with a self-driving car. So that's why they put all this investment and built it. It doesn't necessarily mean that, that they're going to sell a car. They're not. Same with Apple. Sure, they could have been building a car and never had any plans to sell it. It could have been, hey, let's figure out how this works. How do we want to push our either self-driving technology or our dashboard or whatever it is to other customers to sell it. Because they have to grow services. They have to grow that business. It's getting a lot bigger, but iPhone still is just, it's everything for them.
And that literally set up my next question. Do you feel is Apple? Everyone says, "Oh, Apple's still so reliant on the iPhone," but again, they had another record quarter. Is Apple still too reliant on the iPhone?
I think it depends. I think the issue for them is they have to make sure they keep having hits with the iPhone. Being too reliant on an iPhone that's selling like crazy is not an issue. Like, that's a good thing. People are lining up for this. Yep. They want it. But the one time that they have a phone that misses, it could just put everything in jeopardy for them. And, Steve Jobs had always talked about this like three-legged stool strategy.
Yeah, different tent poles and all that
stuff. Yeah, all
like
of that, and they don't have that at all. Like, the iPad has dropped, I think, for 12 straight quarters, I believe it is now. Mac is kind of chugging along, but it's not growing huge.
It's not growing, little ticks, kind of staying steady. It's still a popular machine.
Yeah, totally. It's doing great, but it's not anywhere near iPhone. So for them, they do have to find this like next area that's going to be big for them. And I think it's interesting, like if you've paid attention to them over the past like year or so, how much Tim Cook has been talking about services. They had like 1 week quarter and they did something unusual. I think it was a year ago, and they published kind of a sheet, or like a PDF showing their services business and like how much it was growing and how important it was. So, that's, I think, a big area that they see opportunity.
And then just to wrap things up, you've covered them for a while. Have you personally seen any shift in how you deal with Apple? And what I'm asking from a standpoint is, look, they've been the king for a while. It's kind of changed now. They still kind of talk a game like that they're the king, but that may not necessarily be the case across the board like it used to be in the past. How have you seen a change or shift just maybe in the company itself with your dealings with them?
Yeah, so I didn't cover them in the Steve Jobs years, which I think was extremely different from how it is now. But I
know those years.
Yeah,
I know those years
predated me. But I think that they have been making an effort to. They're never going to be an open company. They're never going to tell everybody what they're doing. And it doesn't benefit them, honestly, to be open either. Like, they're making products that everybody wants to copy, and that there's just a lot of competition in the areas they're in. I do think they're making more of an effort to kind of peel back the curtain just a little bit. So, we did, Connie, our editor-in-chief, and I did this big package on the Mac last fall, which was great. Like, we were able to talk to some executives, see it early.
Which they know, they have been a lot more open in general across tech outlets.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, definitely. So I think, there's been a shift in how much they're willing to say. And, they are still the king. Like, in phones, they are. Smartphones, they are. Like, they and Samsung are just kind of neck and neck right now. But, I think that they're trying to share a little bit more, but not too much.
Do you think, though, that they're being a little more open? Because during the Steve Jobs day, they were extremely closed off. I mean, basically the only media quote or person who would get his phone was Walt Mossberg and maybe a couple other guys. Yeah. Do you think that they have decided to become more open because they've kind of because they're, at least the perception of their company is not as strong or not as dominant as it once was, and it can't be that same way forever. But do you think that's partially why they're being a little more open as well?
I don't know. I mean, I think a lot of it has to do with the CEO. Tim Cook is generally a well-liked guy. He's not like Steve Jobs, who was feared. Like, Jobs was very much respected, but he was feared.
Yeah.
I've talked to a lot of people who worked with him when he first started Apple, and they'd tell stories about him like running down the halls, screaming at people, and like picking out specific people at meetings to yell at. And Tim Cook isn't like that. Like, he's generally a more easygoing guy. He worked in operations, just very different personality. And I think a lot of what we're seeing from Apple now is because of him. Like, he's Apple, kinder, gentler Apple, what some people said under Tim Cook. I think that that's true.
Awesome. Well, Shara, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate it. Everybody, Shara Tipkin, you can check out her work on CNET.com, and your Twitter name is basically your first and last name, spelled I should spell it all out, SHARATIBKEN. Did I pass the test?
Perfect.
All right. Thanks, Shara. We appreciate it.
Thanks.
Okay, so what we're going to do right now is segue into more of our stories here on the Apple Byte Extra Crunchy. Really appreciate that talk, and hopefully you guys and gals got a little bit of insight. But also, just like we said, we're posing the question of, really, is there a next thing for Apple? I know our calls are kind of stuck right now, but please just send us an email or just send me a Twitter right now at Brian Tong. We'd love to hear what your thoughts are. Do they have a next thing up their sleeve? What could it be for you? But what we're going to talk about is really the story that headlines to this week. It's a little overblown, but it's still fun to talk about. The 2017 iPhone, right? We know that a 7S large screen, regular screen are coming out. But what about this whole rumored 5.8-inch OLED iPhone? Well, according to Fast Company, they believe that this next, 10th anniversary iPhone, the iPhone 8 or whatever they end up calling it, could likely cost, or in their words, will likely cost more than $1,000. Now, I don't know about you all. Are you willing to spend $1,000 on an iPhone? Now, let me just give you some perspective here. If you wanted to buy something like an iPhone 7 Plus and max it out with 256 gigs of storage, it would sell for, you would have to pay it before taxes and everything, $969. Okay, so we know that there are people doing that, but let's talk about the large majority of people. This is the 5.8-inch iPhone with an OLED screen. People on Periscope are like, no, I would not do that. I'm not going to pay $1,000. But I think you'd be surprised, because when I think about it, if this is their premium version of the phone, this is the premium one, and I'm not even a big screen phone guy. If this is the whole idea that Johnny Ive's vision is to create this slate, this monolith, just a pure piece of glass for a phone, it's 5.8-inch OLED screen, max capacity, right? It's going to most likely have the digital zoom, bokeh effect, dual camera lens, all that, and it's this like super sleek. Would you do it? With a contract, well, I guess, now these days the whole idea of a contract is dead, but you're doing it in payment plans. I think more people, once we end up seeing this thing, might buy it more than we think. That's my gut. I think we'd be surprised. Here's some other things that the report from Fast Company also said to kind of give credence to why they think it'll be easily over $1,000. The new 5.8-inch phone will probably be called the iPhone 8. Oh, sorry, this is the line that I really enjoyed. But some believe Apple will call it the far cooler sounding iPhone X. Now, I don't know how long you've been listening to the show, but we're just going to call it like it is. There's a specific Apple podcast / video show that called it out the iPhone X from the very beginning. You know what it is. It was this show. It was this show. Here's some other information about it. Wireless charging is expected to be in it, but also, according to Fast Company, Apple is working with a company called Lumentum with a 3D sensor. They have not been able to confirm exactly what it'll do, but most likely this 3D sensor could be used for something like maybe facial recognition and unlocking your phone, or even improving the photos that you get because it's able to have a more detailed depth sensor, and also potentially an augmented reality feature, which Apple has continued to talk about. But anyways, The overall consensus, at least initially, your gut check is if you would buy a $1,000 iPhone. Most people here are saying, no, but I think we'd be surprised. I think more people would buy it than not. And the thing that bothers me the most about this whole idea of a premium iPhone, I've been an iPhone person for a long time. I love the Pixel, the best Android phone, hands down. But Apple is now completely fragmenting. Apple is like doing what Samsung did back in the day. Samsung now really has one phone. They have, like, quite honestly, at least from a premium standpoint, they have the S8. Apple has the 4.7-inch iPhone, a 5.5-inch iPhone, and now a 5.8-inch one, and all three do different things. Entry-level one will be solid. The second one will have the dual lens. The third one will be the premium one with the dual lens and the new sexy body and all that. Like, they might be making a lot of money, but this is, like I say, this is completely a different Apple than we've ever seen before, making 3 different models of a phone. But if you're talking about just straight up pure cash money, the results have shown that people are doing that. Apple had their best quarter ever and sold their most iPhones ever just recently. We did do a quick note, at least from the rumor mills, all 3 phones, according to Ming-Chi Kuo at Digitimes, expects them to include wireless charging. And another little quick story about iPhone 8 production maybe starting earlier than usual based on supply chain checks. That doesn't mean that we're going to see the phone any earlier, but at least according to reports, iPhone 8 production, or whatever this, these new next-gen iPhones, may start a little earlier. All right, let's talk a little bit about MacBook Pros, references to the next gen MacBook Pros that some people are like annoyed that I keep on saying, just wait for this year. New references to the next gen MacBook Pros have been discovered in Mac OS 10.12.4's beta. So this is based off of Apple blog Pikes Universum. They looked and dug into the logs, and really, we have this all the time. Every time Apple releases betas, there's kind of nuggets that people go digging for. And based on this, they were able to find motherboard identifiers, or basically motherboard numbers, that do not correspond to any MacBook Pros that exist today. So what does that mean? Well, obviously these are motherboards intended for new MacBook Pros. They then cross-reference those motherboard numbers with the latest Kaby Lake chipset from Intel and found and pretty much gave this huge breakdown listing down the line of exactly what you will expect to see from a processor standpoint, from a product line standpoint of the new MacBook Pros coming out this year. So again, right, we can expect Kaby Lake. There's going to be different levels of graphics depending on the chip, but we are still expecting to see a 13-inch with no touch bar, a 13-inch with a touch bar, and a 15-inch with a touch bar, all beefed up. And again, you wait for this year. Again, it's fall. I know it's a little ways out. You get Kaby Lake. You get 32 gig RAM compatibility. You get better battery life, and most likely the touch bar is going to be at least more optimized, and developers are going to figure out how to use it more effectively. I don't think it's there yet. I still think it's not the greatest feature yet, but we'll see. I'm going to still give it a little time for developers to get into that. And to jump on board with that really quickly, Microsoft just released through their beta program for Microsoft Office, their Office Insider beta program, that touch bar integration has come to Microsoft Word, PowerPoint, and Excel for the Mac. So I'm not part of that program. I still don't have a touch bar Mac, but if you guys and gals want to jump on that, you can sign up for the Office Insider beta program. They do have, at this moment, touch bar integration with the Office suite. Another thing everyone's looking forward to, Beats X. This is the long-delayed Apple, co-designed with Apple and Beats. They're W1 chip-based earbuds, but they have this, that single wire that connects them that goes behind your head. Apple has announced that they will be officially launching on February the 10th. At the time of this recording, that will be tomorrow. They'll come out in black and white. They're $149. And I've got to say, I've always felt that they delayed these Beat X because they didn't want to take away some of the shine from the AirPods. And I'll kind of break it down for you why. We know the AirPods, right? They have that design that is hit or miss, and I'm not going to, hate on it any more than I have. I still think the design is kind of weird, but it has grown on me a little more, I will say. The actual AirPods are a very good product. I can't call them great, but they are a very, very good product just because of the W1 chip, the way it syncs. Well, here, these Beats, they also use the same exact W1 chip. So although you don't take them out of a case and they instantly sync, you just press a single button and they will sync exactly and as quickly as the Apple AirPods. Not only that, the sound on these Beat X, it's more sealed. There's deeper bass. It's a fuller sound. And then also on that wire connection, you actually have a physical remote. You have the ability to change tracks, to turn up the volume, pause and play, like prompt Siri. On the AirPods, you can only do either Siri or pause and play, and you can only choose one of those two functions. So functionality-wise, these are significantly better. And then the price point is $149 for the Beats X and $169 for the AirPods. And yes, the AirPods are completely wireless, but these Beats are in a way kind of like completely wireless, other than you have that thing on that goes over the back of your neck. So for working out, fitness, I think they're killer. I actually prefer the Power Beats 3 for fitness, but I'm just saying it's really interesting that they delayed it about a month and a half or so when the rest of the Beats line came out earlier. The AirPods then came out, and now they just kind of waited for the Beats X. It's smart from a marketing standpoint, but I just think that they did that because they didn't want to take away any shine or interest, because when you stack them up side by side, Apple loyalists are going to buy the AirPods, but people don't realize these Beats X were designed in partnership. They were the first Beats that were designed in partnership with Apple's design engineering team. And the earbuds magnetically click together, so you're never going to they're going to stay together. They're pretty wild. So I would definitely check them out. Just a couple more stories before we wrap things up. Apple has hired Amazon's Fire TV head to now manage and really spearhead Apple's business. This is a report according to Bloomberg. This is what's going on. Apple has hired Timothy Twerdahl, former head of Amazon's Fire TV unit. He'll basically be in charge of now pushing the Apple TV platform forward, while the former head is going to be shifted over to locking down content deals. The biggest thing that we've talked about, content is king. Content is king. I can't tell you that over and over and over. If Apple wants to make this a significant product, they need unique content that people care about. We've seen it. We've already seen it not only on Netflix, but even Amazon's own Fire TV, their Prime platform. They have content that people want to watch and go to. Apple doesn't right now. We know the stories. They're working on Carpool Karaoke, Planet of the Apps, biopic with based on Dr. Dre's life, a series there, but it's only going to be available on Apple Music. It's kind of weird that they were just trying to get people to try and subscribe. I get it, but it doesn't make sense. Just get their content on Apple TV to make it a box that people beyond the Apple ecosystem want to buy. I think that's the biggest thing. In Apple's recent earnings report, the Apple TV is bundled with that category called Others. Shar and I talked about, the Apple Watch is in there, iPods are in there, so is the Apple TV, so they don't report the official numbers. They said the reason that the other category for Apple declined this most recent quarter was because of a lack of sales of the Apple TV. So it's not catching on. It's a nice upgrade. I have it. I can still do everything else with the original Apple TV. The remote is nicer, but it's not giving us something more that makes someone beyond an Apple user want to get it, really. So we'll see if this new hire does any better, helps them out any better. Also, quick thing, Apple Pay is now the most common mobile payment platform in the US. So before, just a year ago, Apple Pay, everyone's like, oh, how is this going to catch on, this whole digital wallet thing? A year ago, it made up 16% of merchants who accepted it. Today, it's now at 36%. PayPal is at 34% in second place. And a MasterCard PayPass is third at 25%. And then just a follow-up to last week's show, LG's ultra-fine 27-inch 5K display, that was the one that had issues when you kept it near a router. LG acknowledged it. They're actually going to offer a fix where they're going to build in better shielding in new models that are manufactured. But if you have an LG 5K display that is the one that is advertised on Apple's site, you can actually get it retrofitted. If you already have one, you have to reach out to LG support to get that taken care of. So LG's slogan is life's good. Good Apple on them. I like that. So there you go. All right, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, that's going to do it for this week's show. We want to thank Shara, our guest, for coming in. Also got to show love to my boy Mitch Chang for running the show instead of Stephen Beacham. He'll be back in a couple weeks. Remember, you guys can always keep on tuning into us. And I know our phone lines are a little lagged up, but you can call us still, 1-800-616-2638. That's going to do it for this week. We will catch y'all next week. Be safe. Peace. Instead of Stephen Beacham, he'll be back in a couple weeks. Remember, you guys